Do you ever think about how soft we've become? I think about this all the time because I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and I just think about movies and think back at your life if you grew up in that time frame or maybe even before that. I mean, we had action figures that were based off of hard R movies. I'm talking RoboCop. If you've seen the original RoboCop, dude gets blown away in the opening scene, gets his hand blown off, and just gets destroyed. I mean, it was very rated R movie, you know, very hard R. And then Terminator. I can't tell you how many Terminator toys I had that were based off Terminator 2 Judgment Day, Tropic Thunder, if you've seen that. I think about that movie all the time, and I'm like, there's no way this movie would ever fly today. All the stuff that's in there, every single person that played those roles, if that movie came out today, they would probably be blacklisted. You know, I think about a lot of other movies that we grew up watching. Movies that were kind of targeted towards kids, and it didn't really mess us up in the way that stuff today is messing us up. You know, they used to say that playing video games and watching movies and TV and stuff was going to rot our brains, but social media seems to be doing a pretty good job of that. And it also seems to be making us soft, because I think what social media is doing is it's giving the voice of few, it's giving that voice to many. So the ideas that are generally a minority, the ones that most people aren't thinking, those are the ideas that get pushed to us for some reason. And another thing that social media has done is it's allowed people to get offended over pretty much everything. I think back just, what was it, a few short months ago where Cracker Barrel was having that debacle with their rebranding. They changed the sign and all these people were freaking out as if that's something that's really important. I mean, maybe to some people it is, but I don't go out to eat anyway. I don't care. It doesn't really matter to me. These people were acting like it was the end of the world. But it's not just stuff like that, it's everything. I mean, if there's something that people can get offended about and that they can bicker about and complain about and be divided over, they're going to find it and they're going to do it. Because everybody is now offended over the small, petty, insignificant stuff. And the worst part about this is that it's stuff that generally just doesn't matter. I mean, if you think about all the things in life that are actually important, it's not the small stuff people are bickering about. But the problem is that people have adopted these ideas and these beliefs as their own, and they've allowed that to form their identity. And because it becomes their identity, they cling to it. And they hold on to it as if it is life or death, because essentially it is for them. Because if they challenge that belief or they challenge that identity, they're challenging now who they are as a person. And that's a terrible thing for a lot of people. That is something that a lot of people aren't equipped to face, because a lot of people are just, they're just way too soft. You know, back in the day, we used to have a thick skin. We used to let stuff roll off our backs. We could get made fun of. We could get laughed at. We could be, you know, degraded and demeaned and talked down upon. And all these things could happen to us, and we just brush it off like water on a duck's back. But today, it is not that way. If you say the wrong thing to the wrong person today, it could cost you your career. It could cost you your relationships. It could cost you everything. And I'm here to tell you, the days of the true patriot, those days are gone. The people that actually had a backbone and would stand up for their beliefs and do what's right and stand up for the things they believe in, that is becoming fewer and far between. And it's not just because people are succumbing to this and are bending at the knee, it's because people don't want to have their lives ruined. They realize that there are real consequences here. There are things at stake. If you stand firm in your beliefs, if you push back against the common narratives. And don't get me wrong, there are still some people that don't care, but there's a large subset of people that just want peace. They want to be left alone, and they're not willing to deal with this stuff. So those people that would normally be standing up for the things that are right, they don't take action anymore. They just sit back, and if it came down to it, they'd probably watch the world burn around them. And I wish that wasn't the case, but that is the situation that we are all facing right now. And I think about this a lot, because I think about all the stuff that we put up with over the last specifically 5 to 10 years. And I'm wondering, at what point do we draw the hard line in the sand? At what point do we say enough's enough when we actually push back and do something about all the stuff that we're unhappy with? And the more that goes on, the more that we continue to tolerate, I'm really starting to believe that that line in the sand is never going to be drawn. Because if you think about 100 years ago, 200 years ago, We were drawing that hard line in the sand over a lot of stuff. If there was something happening around us that we didn't agree with, we were not afraid to let people know that we didn't agree with it. We were not afraid to stand firm in our beliefs and to push back. But we don't hold those same values anymore. We don't act in the same way that we used to. And I guess an argument could be made both ways. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? But if you consider the direction we're headed as a society, and if you consider all the things that most people are unhappy with, I would say that it's kind of a bad thing. Even if you just think about wages, and you think about the fact that we're being taxed for basically everything, and it won't be long before we're being taxed for breathing. And you think about the fact that inflation keeps rising, the cost of everything keeps going up, we're all stuck dealing with this. That's a bad thing that we don't push back. It's a bad thing that we don't make our voices very heard on a lot of these topics. Because the more that we continue to allow, the more that we're going to be essentially walked all over. And I think that's basically the reality we're living in right now. So with all that said, I mean, how do we combat this? How do we push back against this? And is there a way that we can actually make a difference? I think that's a great question. And I believe that's a question we should all be asking. And unfortunately, I don't think there's a simple answer to this. Because the fact is, the reality that we live in today, if you say the wrong thing, there is a very real chance that you could be canceled. There's a very real chance that it could have very negative consequences on your life. But while that is a possibility, I don't think that should stop us from holding firm in our values, for standing for the things that we believe in. And I think there's a right and a wrong way to do this. The wrong way to do it, I believe, is the way that it's being done right now from the voice of the few. Because a lot of these agendas and these ideologies are kind of being shoved down our throats. It's a lot of stuff that most of us don't want to hear, but it's forced into our lives anyway. I think that's the wrong way to do things. I believe that the right way to do it is, instead of forcing an idea or a belief or an ideology into somebody's life, maybe just helping them understand why you think the way you actually think. Why you have the beliefs you have, instead of saying, here's my beliefs and it has to be this way. Why not say, here's my beliefs, here's what has led me to coming to these beliefs and adopting these ideas, and here's why it's important to me. Maybe it's as simple as that. Just being reasonable about this, being rational, and understanding that not everybody is going to have the same beliefs as you. Not everybody is going to have an open mind and is going to be willing to adopt the same beliefs that you have. And that's okay. Because if we lived in a world where everybody thought the same, it would be kind of boring. And I think that would essentially cause society to regress, because there would be no free thinkers out there. There would never be innovation. And therefore there would never be change. But since we do live in a world where there is still innovation every single day, and change is happening all around us, I think we can get ahead of this. I think we can actually maybe turn the tides on this, and to not be so soft, to still be patriots and warriors in our own way without being forceful or obligatory. And I think this is something that's going to become much more important, because with technology advancing the way it is, and with us as humans not communicating in the same way that we used to, I fear that the idea and the voice of the many is the voice that's actually going to be suppressed. Because in many cases, the voice of the many comes from the people that just want to be left alone. And they see the potential negative consequences of them speaking up, of them standing firm in their beliefs. So those are the ones that sit silent. And that's a terrible thing, because when you have all of these people with all of these ideas and all of these beliefs and all this stuff going on in their minds that could potentially change the world and create positive change that we want to see, it makes sense that that is heard. But as of right now, it's not being heard nearly as much as it should be. So the next time that you're faced with something that goes against your values or your beliefs, speak up about it. Try to help people understand why you feel the way you feel. Try to reach a middle ground. And if somebody says something that you don't align with, don't take it to heart. Realize that it's all just noise anyway. And at the end of the day, none of this stuff really matters. All of this petty, insignificant stuff that's going on in the world around us every single day, these are not the things in life that are actually important. The next time that you're in one of those situations, try to drown out the noise and just focus on the stuff in life that's actually important. Ground yourself in the present and experience the moment, because that's the stuff in life that's actually important. Think back on our past and think about how people used to stand up for what they believed in, And think about how people didn't allow themselves to get walked all over. Think about how you grew up. Think about the movies you watched and the TV shows you watched and all the things that we were surrounded with in our daily lives that really didn't affect us in the same way that they do today. And reverse engineer that. Figure out why that is. What is it in modern society that has changed? What has caused us to become so soft? And I truly believe that the more that we can adopt this mindset, the more that we can stand firm in not just our values, but who we are as people. Because I believe that deep down, we're still the patriot. We're still the warrior. We've just buried him.